Hello, and welcome to another episode of Reading the Room. This is the spot where we're talking all books all summer long. And today I am joined by a very special person from a local bookshop in Easthampton, Book Moon. Welcome, Andy.
Hello, thank you. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about what customers can expect at Book Moon. What kind of stands you out from the rest of bookstores in Western Mass?
Yeah, Book Moon is great. So we've been around since like 2019. It used to be a really lovely used bookstore called White Square Books. And then the current owner, Kelly, bought it in 2019. And it's a really cool space. We have a little bit of everything. I think the stuff that we're maybe most known for is we have a really fantastic horror section and sci-fi and fantasy section.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, and so you're going to find cool stuff that I think you might not be able to find other places. Also have a great poetry section, a great activism section, just a really, I think, well-curated selection of books, things you might not be able to pick up elsewhere.
Great. And how long have you guys been in business? How long have you been a part of Book Moon?
Yeah, I've been working for Book Moon for a couple years now. The store's been open since 2019, opened right before COVID, which is a fantastic time to open a bookstore. And my son was born in October of 2019, which is the same time they opened up. And I just took him there all the time and just hung out. My friend was working there at the time, and so I would just show up and just literally hang out for hours with this newborn. And I think that eventually they just decided it was easier to just give me a job than to have me sort of loitering.
Might as well clock in since you're here all the time. Yeah. So today we're specifically talking about certain kinds of books we might pick up at a bookstore or a library, reading the cover, kind of reading the back, and thinking a story might be something, but as we read, there's a huge plot twist, or a book is completely different than what we thought. So today we're going to judge some books by their covers, and you've brought a few examples of some of your favorites of these kind of ones. Let's go off the first one there.
Yeah, absolutely. So brought a couple books today to talk about. The first one, The Wind-Up Bird Chronicle by Haruki Murakami. He's really sort of maybe the most famous Japanese novelist. I don't know, I probably shouldn't make that claim, but well-known Japanese novelist. This is my favorite book by him. It's a wonderful book. And the cover to this edition is absolutely baffling to me because it's kind of that cartoony cover that I think is kind of in right now, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of nice. You have a little cat. You have this little well, right? It's cute, right? And like this is perhaps the least cute book I've ever read in my life. It's a beautiful book. It's a wonderful book. It's this sort of nightmarish book where it starts off with this guy has lost his cat and he's trying to find his cat and he sort of gets embroiled in this sort of dreamlike, surreal world of strange characters and like scary, harrowing circumstances.
Sounds a little bit like Alice in Wonderland.
It is. It has something like there's this sort of like slow discovery of this sort of like other place that is, and it's beautiful, and it's completely upsetting, and it's one of the few books that caused me to lose sleep, so it's an incredible book, but this cover just cracks me up. I see this, the cat, it's nice, it's cartoon, it's nice. It's not a nice book.
So when you picked that book up, were you already familiar with the author, kind of knowing his style, or were you like, oh, this is a cute cover, I'm just gonna find out what it is?
So I read the book maybe 15 years ago, and I just saw that they had a new edition of it with this new cover.
Gotcha.
And not that the old cover was much better, it also just had like kind of a cute bird on it, and you're like, oh, birds, nice. But I just thought this was like one of those sort of major juxtapositions between what you're shown and what you get, that if I was just sort of picking this up on the cover alone, I might be just utterly horrified. But this is still a recommendation. It is so good.
Yes, absolutely. A perfect plot twist book. So what's next on our list?
Next up, we have Between Two Fires by Christopher Buehlman. I really love this cover.
Oh, wow. That is really cool. I like that font that goes with it, too.
I think it's really cool. And this is actually an instance of judging a book by its book, which is a weird thing to say. But, like, this is a new edition that just came out, I think earlier this year or late last year. I don't totally remember. But it's beautiful, right? It's got, like, the, like the black edges. It has this nice hardcover. But before it was published like this, it was, I think, self-published. And it was kind of a janky-looking book, right? Like, it had the same cover, but it was like this like really cheap paper, and there was no information about the publisher anywhere, and all the text was this weird font. And my friend was like, you have to read this book. You absolutely have to. I'm like, okay, I'll order a copy. And I got this book and I'm like, this looks like it was made in somebody's basement, you know?
A DIY project.
Yeah, and so I kind of started off, and my you know, my expectations were pretty low, you know, and it looks like, because I think it might have been self-published, I'm not totally sure, and it blew me away, right? It's this really wonderful, it's also kind of a scary book. It's a sort of medieval horror about this knight, this sort of disgraced knight who goes on a pilgrimage with this young girl who's trying to reach the Pope, and it's like plague-stricken, and there's all these like really beautiful, horrific moments that happen, kind of like a road trip through hell, you know? And it's and it's so good, and I think that you would never have known picking up that book. So that kind of taught me a little bit about judging books, right? Like, just because it may not look the nicest, it may not have the fanciest sort of accoutrements, etc., like something incredible could be here. And so I'm really happy that this book got sort of the release it deserved, I think.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, maybe the intentional shift of giving it a new cover, making the ends of the pages black, to sort of give you a better idea of, like, this is something you should pick up.
Totally.
And find out.
So, highly recommend this book. And then, you know, maybe think, like, maybe I shouldn't be quite as judgy.
Yeah, right.
And we know what I'm looking at.
Yeah, or those books that you're kind of always like, that cover is just so crazy, but I don't know if I have the time, I don't know if I want to read it. You know, take this as a sign to take a chance on those books that might look a little different.
Totally.
You know? What's next on your list?
Okay, I've got
for
one last book to talk about here. And this is a book of poetry, one of my very favorite books of poetry. It's a long poem by a poet named C.D. Wright, just an incredible poet, and the book is called Deep Step Come Shining, and it's a gorgeous book. It's a book-length poem that is kind of like a sort of journey through this sort of mythical South. It's beautiful, it's strange, it's just also sort of dreamlike. It's just a gorgeous experience. And my friend recommended this book to me, and it just sat on my shelf for a long time just because of the cover, which looks like a sort of bargain bin grunge album, you know, you might find.
He's looking at me, I'm a little scared.
Right, like, it's like the first thing you want to see when you look at a book is not someone like frowning at you, where it's like, what are you doing, you know? And so it's kind of that combined with like the sort of 90s sort of style, which outline. You know, is not the book's fault, right? Like, it did come out in the 90s, and this is what a lot of books looks like then. But again, it feels like I'm looking like an MTV Buzzbin reject. Like, I'm expecting it to sort of like brrr, you know, like when I pick it up.
I was just gonna say too, like when I was a kid, the Shel Silverstein books, his picture on the back cover was terrifying.
It's frightening. He's a frightening looking man.
So this is the one that if I had on my shelf, I would turn around at night. I don't want to look at that.
So we have, and the thing is, like, I've seen, this is actually, like, I've seen the original photograph of this, and it's beautiful. It's just something about this context. It just sat on my shelf forever. There's also, you can see, they're like hummingbirds strung around her neck. It is both kind of boring and kind of grotesque, and that's kind of a tough sell, you know?
Yes.
We've got like employee recommendations at the bookstore, and I often have this book up here, and it just sits as just this this person just judging us, you know? But, you know, once I finally read it, it was like, this is incredible. You know, this is beautiful. And not only that, but it somehow actually does match the content of the book in a way that actually really works, where you kind of feel like you're entering this sort of mythic, strange space. So, you know, it's still, sometimes you just got to get through the cover to get through the good stuff inside. Pick
up that book, brush off the dust, and give it a good read. Now, all of these books here, are these options that we can find at Book Moon?
Yes, you can. Yes. Perfect. In fact, I got to return these to the store because I have temporarily borrowed them for this. Right. You don't want to lose that employee discount. No, it's very important to my life.
It's very important. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Was there anything else you wanted to mention about Book Moon? Something customers should know? What are your hours?
Yeah, so we're open from 10 to 6 Monday through Saturday, 1 to 5 on Sunday. And right now we're doing y'all familiar with the book crawl that's happening in Western Mass?
It's great that you said that, because we have an episode coming up where we will be talking about it.
That's exciting. So we do have the book crawl going on. Come by, get a stamp, check out our books, say hi. I'll like to talk about books with just about anybody, but I won't make you if you don't want to.
Of course.
But I'm there if you want to. Yeah, I'm just really happy to be on. Thanks for having me on today.
Of course. And that's a little hint at an episode that we will explore and show you guys soon. The Valley Bookstore Crawl is something great in this local area to discover. And that's all the time we have for today. So thank you again, Andy, so much for joining us. And for you guys sitting at home watching this, don't go anywhere. Mia and I will be right back with our latest review of Malibu Rising. And until then, thanks so much, guys. Have a great day. Hello and welcome back to Reading the Room. I'm here with Mia Valencia, and we're going to keep talking about Malibu Rising, the book that we've been reading throughout this show. We are on the 4th section of this amazing book, and we are struck with some bad news as this section opens up. So, Mia, do you want to take it from there? What happens?
The thing that I feel was hinted at a lot, and it did finally happen, where our beloved June Riva, she died. She passes away. She drowns in the bathtub. All of the kids are gone. She's home alone for the first time. She's kind of upset. Mm-hmm. She's thinking about Mick, thinking about how did my life come to this? And she, draws herself a bath, pours herself a drink, and her last thought is how she needs to get her life together for her kids, and how she doesn't want this to be how Kit was saying, oh, you're a drunk. She doesn't want that to be the memory. And that's her last thought, and she ends up drowning in the bathtub.
And I think this point might not necessarily be a little controversial, but there might be some debate over the intention behind her death. But I am a firm believer that this was not intentional. This was not a suicide.
Yes.
It was just her finally taking a bath, finally relaxing for the first time in years, and being so relaxed that she is enjoying that bath a little bit too much.
Yes. Yeah, I do think that is
under the water. But for her to be thinking all right, this is it. Starting now, I'm going to be a better mom. I don't want to do this for my life. And it just coming down to such a tragic death.
Yeah. So. And of course it was Nina who found her, and she is thinking, she's really young, and she's a teenager. She's 16, I think she is. And she's the one that finds her. She's glad that it's her and not her siblings, which already also points to so much of her character, that she's the one that's going to take care of it, and she's looking for someone else to help. Maybe if it's going to be Mick, it can't be her grandparents. They've passed away. They have no one else in their life, and so she has nothing to do but handle it herself. Yeah. And she keeps the siblings away.
Calls Kit's friend, who is at a sleepover, calls Kit's friend mom. I think Kit is, 3rd grade, 4th grade.
She's very little.
She's a little kid. Says, tell Kit to come home. Don't tell her why. And very much takes on the role of protective sibling. Don't go inside the house. I don't need to tell you why. She takes all of her siblings to the beach, tells them, Mom's dead. This is what we're going to do. Immediately has a plan from the get-go.
Yeah, and it also further announces the beach as a symbol of their solace. That's always been their safe place. It's how they found surfing. It's how they bonded with each other. And it was something that was always there for them in a very tumultuous childhood where things were constantly changing. They always had the beach. So that was kind of the place where they announced this bad news, where their lives were going to change forever. And so I think that that's really important. And it also shows, we get to dive more into just how much Nina went through to not be torn apart from her siblings. She drops out of high school. She picks up the seafood restaurant, and they make a note of saying that it's exactly, she didn't want it, her mom didn't want it, and yet here they are taking over the restaurant. And she does all of that. She is kind of scrounging money up wherever she can to pay for the dental bills, and when Hud breaks his arm because he falls off the car, finding any way that she can possibly do this. And she drops out of high school. Jay and Hud offer to drop out of high school. She says absolutely not. She says, and I think there's a part where she says that if they do, she'll kick them out of the house. And they both say they know she's not going to, but they might as well just believe her.
They take that enough as a threat and are like, all right, she really means it.
Yeah. And I think that's they talk about how they kind of, part of them can't believe that Mick didn't show up to June's funeral. Yeah. And they're we can believe that he wouldn't, but at the same time, that's so unbelievable that like someone he wrote this beautiful song for, someone that he claims to have loved, and several times he has claimed the only woman that he ever actually loved, and he doesn't show up to her funeral and leaves them. And like even the schools, they all know that no one is home, but they're like, listen, as long as nothing happens, as long as no trouble comes up, you guys can become their legal guardian once you turn 18.
Because she's so close to turning 18, and she's just trying to get past that threshold where she can become their legal guardian. She eventually does in this section, signs the papers. That's the first origin of the sandwich right after.
Yes.
She makes the sandwich for the first time for her siblings. And we kind of have a little bit of a time jump after that. And now this party that is sort of hinted at and alluded out the whole story is finally happening. Everyone's coming together. She has the cleaners in her big, huge house. She has a caterer coming. A ton of people are showing up. And while she is getting ready and the house is kind of empty, just the siblings, someone comes through the door.
Yes.
Who is that?
And it's, of course, Brandon Randall. This is
For
Nina's...
context, Nina's ex-husband, who we learn about in the very first section of the book. We learn she's 25, a recent divorcee, which is pretty young to be divorced. And that we don't really know much else about what happens. But this man comes through the door, says, I made a huge mistake. I screwed up. I miss you. I want you back. Very similar to how Mick Riva shows up at June's door, begging and pleading.
Yes.
And so this part, I actually was cringing so much, and I had to bookmark it and close it and go ew, ew, ew for a little bit.
Yeah.
But as we know, Nina is a very big people pleaser. She's always put her own thoughts to the side to sort of make others feel comfortable. So she's in this party. People are starting to trickle in, and she's like, let's go upstairs and talk some more. She's talking to this man. He's like, I screwed up. I miss you. I want you. We belong together. She goes, I don't know what you want me to say. He grabs her hand, goes downstairs while this party is starting to really bubble up. More people are showing up in their house. He goes, excuse me, everyone. And I'm like, ooh, had to bookmark it there for a second. He interrupts the whole party. He's like, I want to make an announcement. This beautiful woman I'm standing next to, I screwed up. I really want her back. And, she just means the world to me. So Nina, will you take me back? In front of this whole party. And everyone... I can't remember. Did I think some people booed and said, you suck. Some people were like, oh, take him back. This is just such a romantic gesture. And she looks at him and she's like, all right, I'll take you back in front of all these people, because that's kind of the person she is. He knows that she won't reject him in public in front of all these people. This is probably a very this is the 80s, so it's not like everyone's got Facebook Live going, but it's a very public,
no one's recording
no
it,
one's streaming this, but it is a very talked about event. If she were to reject him, it would be in the tabloids, it would be in the press, people would know about it, and she doesn't want that kind of negative attention. So she says yes, and I'm like, that just made me so mad. He knows that she wouldn't. He just shows up to this house like nothing ever happened, and takes her hand and is just like, this big public display of affection, and everything's okay.
Yeah, I think it really is one of the big things I think in this section is seeing how much these generational cycles are happening, because we learn about how Nina and Brandon met, very similar to how Mick and June met, where he sees her on the beach and is like taken in like a moment of passion and asks for her number. They go out to dinner and all of those things, and we see their relationship kind of very parallel to Mick and June's. And he seems so perfect. He buys this house that isn't really what Nina wants, but she's willing to. She's like, oh, but he thought about the bedrooms for all the other kids and thought about, oh, this place for the party. So like, how really bad can it be? And then we see him leave, which is very similar. I met someone else, exactly how Mick left June. And also kind of another in that tumultuous childhood where Mick had a very tumultuous childhood and ended up doing the same thing to his kids. So you really see the parallels of these like generational cycles, and which I think is really interesting. But like through all of that, the way that Nina and the other kids, the other siblings, have kind of come out of that is that they're still really close and that they would still do anything for each other. And we do see that a little bit with the way Kit Nina helps Kit with her outfit, and she was like, oh, we never really got to do the talk about boys thing because I was being your mom because our mom died. And like, there's kind of like the things you miss out on, even though because she was handling so many other things. And I think that it's very interesting seeing those generational cycles. And I think that, that's one of my favorite things about this book is the idea of the generational cycles and how even though you try so hard to break them, sometimes you can't help what happens. And I think that over the course of the book, I think we learn more about that and more how we are like more like our parents than we sometimes want to be, and how like is it really do we have the ability to not be like that, or is it just that's kind of the cards that were dealt at birth? And I think that's very interesting.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. And I want to mention too, like one more bullet point before we wrap things up for this episode. But on the note too of the brothers, Hud and Jay are, as we know, one is seeing an ex-girlfriend, another one is seeing someone else who isn't necessarily an ex-girlfriend, but it's something that they're both kind of keeping under wraps. During this section of this book, Hud asks Jay if he can ask Ashley out. He tries to make it all casual, and for context, in our last episode, we talked about how Hud is dating Ashley. Ashley is Jay's ex-girlfriend. Things definitely like did not end good for them. They're not really on speaking terms. Things are awkward. And they've been seeing each other. So he's trying to make it casual. Like, oh, if I were to ask him, get his blessing, then I can slowly sort of introduce her back into the family. And then we can pretend that we met by chance and this romance happened while you guys were broken up. So he asks him, and obviously he says, no, that's my ex-girlfriend. Don't even think about it. End of conversation. So now he's in a very awkward situation. So during the party, Ashley ends up showing up anyway. And they're kind of hanging out. They're getting a little cozy. And people are starting to go, wait, why is she here? Because aren't they broken up? So that's kind of where we leave off in this section of like, he has to figure out a way to be honest with his brother while also trying to like soften the blow as much as possible because he really cares about this other girl. But it's definitely, and Nina starts to notice too. Nina starts to pick up that clearly there's something going on. She's like, oh my gosh, like this is just going to blow up in everyone's faces.
Yeah. One last thing about that is I do think is interesting is the only thing that we ever really see Jay talk about the breakup is that it seemingly came out of nowhere. Yeah. Where he was like, I didn't have like a stream of women coming at me, but like I'd never really been broken up with. And that one seemed to come out of nowhere. I didn't know what happened. And of course we know what happened is because she was having an affair with Hud.
She was not faithful.
Yes.
And she kept telling him, kept telling Hud, like, you know, I'm going to find a way to break up with him. I'm going to find a way to break up with him.
Yeah.
And her way was just like dropping it out of nowhere. So dots are going to be connected soon. There's going to be some kind of rift, some kind of feud between the two brothers. And we'll see kind of what sides Nina picks, or if she picks a side, where that leaves Kit. But we will find out in our next episode.
In the next episode.
So yeah, we encourage you guys to read along with us. Highly recommend Malibu Rising. Great book for the summertime. Lots of summer visuals and that kind of thing. And we will continue to read the story in our next episode next week.
Yes. And we'll see you then. Have a great day.